Silence had a weight in deep space. Counselor Tavi felt it pressing against their forearms as they floated near the observation window, watching distant stars drift past like scattered diamonds. The medical convoy Gentle Horizon was 3 days from the nearest colony, running supplies to frontier worlds that most species had forgotten existed. Tavi enjoyed these quiet moments. As a Celian, they could sense emotions from other beings, and the crew of 47 souls radiated a comfortable boredom that felt like warm water against their skin. No fear, no pain, just the gentle routine of a mission nobody expected to matter. Then the distress signal arrived. The bridge erupted into activity. Captain Morel, an insectoid Galish with compound eyes that reflected the red emergency lights, clicked their mandibles rapidly as they processed the incoming transmission. The signal was weak, looping, desperate. A voice filled the bridge. It belonged to someone afraid. "This is Administrator Van of Colony Mira 7. We are experiencing a catastrophic disease outbreak. Our medical supplies are exhausted. Children are dying. Please, anyone who receives this message. We need help. We have days, maybe hours. Please." The message repeated. The same words, the same terror, the same plea. Tavi felt tears forming in their secondary eyes. The Celian code was clear. Suffering called, and the compassionate answered. They turned to Captain Morel and spoke without hesitation. "We must respond." Captain Morel hesitated. Their antennae twitched with uncertainty. "The planet is not on standard routes. Our charts show nothing there. No colony registration. No infrastructure records. Perhaps the records are outdated," Tavi insisted. "Captain, there are children dying. We carry medicine. We carry hope. How can we ignore this?" The crew murmured agreement. Most species aboard the convoy came from peaceful worlds. They had joined a medical mission because they believed in healing. The vote was quick and unanimous. They would answer the call. Tavi felt satisfied as the convoy adjusted course toward Mira 7. They did not notice the 3 humans in the medical bay exchanging glances that held no satisfaction at all. Dr. Priya Nair was 42 years old. She had spent 15 years as a combat medic on Earth before joining the Galactic Medical Corps. She had heard distress signals before. Real ones, fake ones, the ones that led rescue teams into ambushes. This one made her skin crawl. She looked at Deshi Okonkwo, her medical technician. He was 28, built like a mountain, gentle with patience, and currently gripping a supply crate hard enough to dent the metal. He felt it too. Lieutenant Rosa Ibarra leaned against the doorframe, cleaning her sidearm. She was the convoy's token security officer, assigned because regulations required at least 1 armed escort on frontier missions. Most crew members thought her presence was unnecessary. Ibarra never corrected them. "The signal is looping," Priya said quietly. Same cadence, same emotional peaks. "Recorded. Could be automated emergency broadcast," Deshi offered. "Colony loses power, backup system kicks in, plays the last recording on repeat." "Could be." Priya did not sound convinced. Ibarra holstered her weapon. "Has anyone verified the source independently?" "I will ask." Priya walked toward the bridge, her steps calm and measured. She had learned long ago that panic helped no one. Captain Morel was coordinating approach vectors when Priya arrived. She waited for a pause in the activity, then asked her question simply. "Captain, has anyone confirmed that Colony Mira 7 exists?" Morel's compound eyes shifted toward her. "The signal originates from a planet. That is confirmation enough. With respect, that confirms someone placed a beacon on the planet. It does not confirm a colony." Counselor Tavi interrupted, their 4 hands pressed together in a gesture of patient disagreement. "Dr. Nair, I understand human caution. Your species survived a harsh world by expecting danger. But not every shadow hides a predator. Sometimes suffering is simply suffering, and compassion is the only answer." Priya studied the Celian for a long moment. Tavi was kind, genuinely, deeply kind. They could not imagine a universe where someone would fake a dying child's plea to lure ships into a trap. Priya could imagine it easily. She had seen it, but she was one voice among 47, and the convoy had already committed. I hope you were right, Counselor. She returned to the medical bay. The convoy dropped out of faster-than-light travel 6 hours later. Mira, 7 hung before them, a brown and gray world with thin atmosphere and no visible lights. No cities, no landing pods, no communication satellites, no colony. Captain Morell's mandibles stopped clicking. The bridge went silent. Then the shadows moved. 6 warships emerged from behind the planet's curve. They were massive, angular, covered in weapons that glowed with charged energy. Their hulls bore the symbol of the Vorkan Dominion, a species known throughout the galaxy for one thing: slavery. Tabby's four hands began to shake. Captain Morell froze completely, their insectoid body locked in a paralysis response that their species had never evolved past. In the medical bay, Priya heard the collision alarms begin to wail. She looked at Deshi and Ibarra. They were already moving. "It is a trap," she said calmly. "Yes," Ibarra replied, checking her weapon's charge. "They do not know what we are." "No," Ibarra smiled. It was not a warm expression. "They do not." The Vorkan warships began their approach. They expected 47 frightened medical workers, easy prey for the slave markets. They had no idea that 3 of those workers came from Earth. They were about to learn. The first boarding pod hit the convoy's hull with a sound like thunder. Then came another, and another. 8 pods in total, each one punching through the outer plating and releasing soldiers into the corridors. Counselor Tavi pressed themselves against the bridge wall, all 4 arms wrapped around their body as if they could hold their fear inside. The Vorkan soldiers were enormous, 7 feet tall, covered in gray-green scales. Their eyes were yellow slits that showed no mercy, no hesitation, no doubt. They carried shock staves designed to hurt without killing. Damaged cargo sold for less. Captain Morell had not moved since the warships appeared. The Galish captains stood frozen at their command station, compound eyes wide and empty. Their species had never developed a fight response. When predators came, Galish hid or died. There was no third option in their evolution. A Vorkan soldier grabbed Morell by their thin neck and threw them to the floor. The captain made no sound. Another soldier began dragging crew members from their stations, sorting them into groups with the efficiency of long practice. The view screen flickered. A face appeared, scaled, scarred, amused. "I'm Overseer Croth of the Vorkan Dominion." The voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "Your vessel and crew are now property of the Dominion. You will be sorted according to your usefulness. Those who cooperate will be treated well. Those who resist will learn why resistance is unwise." Tabi found their voice. It came out as a whisper. "Please, we are a medical convoy. We carry only medicine and supplies. We have nothing of value." Croft laughed. The sound was like bones breaking. "You misunderstand, little empath. You are the value. Celian empaths fetch excellent prices on the interrogation markets. Your captain's species makes adequate household servants. Even your lesser crew members have uses in the mining colonies." He leaned closer to the screen. "Cooperation will make your transition easier. I suggest you embrace it." The transmission ended. In the medical bay, 8 Vorkan soldiers arrived to claim the final group of crew members. They moved with confidence, shock staves crackling with energy. They had done this hundreds of times. The routine was simple. Terrify, subdue, sword, ship. Dr. Priya Nair stood calmly beside an examination table. Deshi Okonkwo was near the supply cabinets, his large frame somehow appearing smaller than usual. Lieutenant Ibarra leaned against the far wall, her hands visible and empty. The lead soldier scanned them with a handheld device. His eyes narrowed at the results. "Humans," he said to his squad. "Database shows limited information. Unremarkable physiology. Poor sensory capabilities. Average strength. Classify them for labor camps." He reached for Priya's arm. She did not resist. She let him grip her wrist and pull her toward the door. She stumbled, appearing weak and frightened. Deshi caught her arm to steady her. The soldier found this amusing. The large one tries to protect the female. How touching. He shoved Deshi backward with one scaled hand. Deshi did not move. The soldier blinked. He pushed again, harder. Deshi's feet remained planted. His body absorbed the force like stone absorbing rain. Confusion flickered across the reptilian face. No species in the Dominion's database could resist a Vorkin's strength so casually. The soldier's grip on his shock stave tightened. Lieutenant Ibarra stepped forward, hands raised in what looked like surrender. "Please," she said softly. "We do not want trouble. Where will you take us?" The soldier dismissed her with a glance. Humans were small, weak, harmless. He reached for his shock stave to teach the large male a lesson. Ibarra moved. The soldier's wrist snapped with a wet crack that echoed through the medical bay. His shock stave was in Ibarra's hands before his scream finished forming. She drove the weapon into his throat, and he collapsed without another sound. The other soldiers turned, weapons rising. They found Dr. Nair already beside their squad leader. A surgical laser pressed against the soft scales under his jaw. Her hand was steady. Her eyes were calm. "Your database," she said quietly, "is missing some important information about humans." The soldiers froze. Their leader whimpered as the laser's heat began to singe his scales. Deshi crossed the distance between himself and the nearest soldier in 2 steps. He grabbed the soldier's shock stave and crushed it in his grip. The metal crumpled like paper. Then he grabbed the soldier himself and threw him into 2 others hard enough to crack their armor. Ibarra was already moving through the remaining soldiers. She did not fight like someone defending herself. She fought like someone who had done this many times, in many places, against many enemies. Each movement was precise, efficient, final. 8 soldiers had entered the medical bay. 30 seconds later, 8 soldiers lay on the floor. Some were unconscious. Some were dead. All of them had learned something new about humans. Priya released the squad leader and let him collapse. She looked at the medical bay's entrance, where crew members from other parts of the ship had gathered to watch. Their faces showed terror, not of the Vorkins, of the 3 humans standing among the bodies. Counselor Tavi pushed through the crowd. Their 4 hands trembled. Their voice shook. What are you?" Priya wiped blood from her fingers with a medical cloth. She met the Celian's eyes without shame. "We are from Earth," she said simply. "Your database calls our world unremarkable. It is not. It is a death world. The gravity crushes. The atmosphere burns. Every species there learned to survive by becoming dangerous." She gestured at the fallen soldiers, including us. We simply chose to be peaceful. We built civilizations that taught us to restrain ourselves. We created medicine instead of weapons. We saved lives instead of taking them. Her voice hardened. "But we never forgot what we are. And these slavers just reminded us." Through the medical bay's communication panel, Overseer Crotha's voice crackled with confusion. He demanded status reports from his soldiers. He received only silence. Ibarra picked up a fallen soldier's communicator and spoke into it with perfect calm. "Overseer Croth, your soldiers have been neutralized. Your trap has failed. I suggest you release the convoy and leave this sector immediately." A long pause. Then Crotha's laughter filled the channel. 3 humans think they can threaten the Vorkin Dominion? I have 6 warships. I have 500 soldiers. You have nothing. Ibarra smiled. "We have something your species has never encountered, Overseer. We have restraint that you mistook for weakness. And you just convinced us to stop restraining ourselves." She crushed the communicator in her hand. "Now we show you what Deathworlders really are. Blood smelled different on alien ships. Sharper, more metallic." Dr. Priya Nair had noticed this during her years in the Galactic Medical Corps, but she had never expected to smell so much of it in one day. The medical bay was quiet now. 8 Vorkin soldiers lay motionless on the floor. The convoy crew stood frozen in the corridor, watching the 3 humans with expressions that mixed terror with something else. Something like hope. Counselor Tavi was the first to speak. Their voice cracked with emotions their empathic senses could not process. "I felt nothing from you. During the fight. No fear. No anger. Nothing." Priya cleaned her surgical laser and returned it to her belt. "We were not feeling. We were working. Emotions come later. Counselor. When the job is finished." But you kill them so easily. Not all of them. Priya gestured at 3 soldiers who were still breathing. Those 3 are sedated. They will wake with headaches and regret. The others gave us no choice. Lieutenant Ibarra finished searching the fallen soldiers for weapons and communications equipment. She collected 4 shock staves, 2 energy pistols, and a tablet that displayed the convoy's internal layout. The Vorkins have been thorough in their planning. They have soldiers throughout the ship, Ibarra reported. 42 on the convoy, another 450 on the warships, plus crew. Deshi cracked his knuckles. The sound made several crew members flinch. So we are outnumbered. Yes. Good. Deshi smiled. It was not a comforting expression. I was worried this would be boring. Captain Morel had finally broken free of their paralysis. The insectoid captain approached on trembling legs. Compound eyes focused on Priya with an intensity that bordered on desperation. How, they asked. How did you do that? The Vorkins are the strongest warriors in 3 sectors. They have conquered dozens of species. No one resists them. Priya considered the question. She had given versions of this explanation before, but most species never truly understood. They cannot. Their worlds have been gentle. Their evolution had been kind. Earth is not like your worlds, she began. Our sun is bright enough to burn unprotected skin. Our gravity is heavy enough to crush weak bones. Our atmosphere is filled with oxygen, a gas so reactive that it rusts metal and fuels fires. She paused, watching their faces. On your worlds, life evolved to cooperate. Resources were plentiful. Predators were rare. Species developed intelligence through community and shared purpose. On Earth, life evolved to compete. Resources were scarce. Predators were everywhere. Species develop intelligence through violence and survival. Tabi's 4 arms wrapped tighter around their body. You are saying humans are predators? I am saying humans are survivors. Our ancestors were prey before they were predators. They were hunted by creatures with fangs and claws and speed we could never match. So they developed something else. Endurance, cunning, the ability to keep fighting when any rational creature would surrender. She looked at the fallen Vorkins. These soldiers are strong, but they evolved on a world where strength was enough. They never needed to develop persistence. They never learned to fight through pain, exhaustion, and fear. They never had to. Ibarra stepped forward. Humans did. On Earth, our ancestors would chase prey for days. Not hours. Days. They would pursue animals until those animals collapsed from exhaustion. They called it persistence hunting. The prey was faster, stronger, better adapted. But it could not outlast us. Deshi nodded. And when our ancestors became the hunters, they did not forget what it meant to be hunted. We carry both instincts. The patience of prey, the determination of predators. Captain Morel's antennae twitched rapidly. But you chose to be peaceful. You built hospitals, medical ships. You help other species. Yes. Priya's voice softened. Because we know what we are capable of. We know the darkness inside us. Every human carries the potential for terrible violence. We build civilizations specifically to contain that potential. We create laws and ethics and compassion because without them, we would consume ourselves. She met Tabi's eyes. The Vorkins made a mistake. They saw our restraint and thought it was weakness. They saw our compassion and thought it was softness. They did not understand that restraint requires strength. That compassion is a choice we make despite our nature, not because of it. Tabi was silent for a long moment. Then they asked the question that hung in the air. What will you do now? Priya looked at Ibarra and Deshi. They nodded. We're going to take back this ship. Then we're going to free every slave on those warships. Then we're going to make sure Overseer Croft and his dominion never trap another convoy again. There are only 3 of you. Yes. Priya smiled. 3 Deathworlders against 500 soldiers who have never faced our kind. I almost feel sorry for them. She did not sound sorry at all. The 3 humans began to move. Priya would take the communication center and cut the Vorkins off from their fleet. Ibarra would hunt the soldiers still aboard the convoy. Deshi would free the captured crew members and secure the cargo holds. Before they separated, Ibarra turned back to the watching crew. Stay hidden. Stay quiet. If a Vorkin finds you, do not fight. Tell them you surrender. Tell them whatever they want to hear. We will come for you. Counselor Tavi stepped forward. Their fear was still present, but something else had joined it. Determination. What can we do to help? Ibarra considered the Celian. Tavi was not a fighter. They would never be a fighter, but they were an empath, capable of sensing emotions at a distance. Can you feel the Vorkins? Their locations? Their emotional states? Yes. Their confidence is overwhelming. They believe they have already won. Ibarra's smile sharpened. Good. Track them. Tell us when that confidence starts to fade. She disappeared into the corridor. Deshi followed. Priya paused at the doorway and looked back at the crew one final time. The galaxy believes humans are peaceful because we are weak. Today, we remind them of the truth. We are peaceful because we choose to be. And today, we are choosing something else. She vanished into the shadows. Counselor Tavi reached out with their empathic senses, tracking the three humans as they moved through the ship. They expected to feel rage, hatred, the dark emotions of violence. Instead, they felt something far more terrifying. Calm. The humans were perfectly, absolutely calm. They moved toward combat the way a surgeon moved toward an operating table. Professional. Focused. Ready. Tavi shivered. They finally understood why the galaxy called Earth a death world. The maintenance corridors of the gentle horizon were narrow, dark, and filled with pipes that hummed with energy. Lieutenant Ibarra moved through them like water through cracks, silent and inevitable. She had memorized the ship's layout during her first week aboard. Most crew members thought her habit of studying blueprints was paranoid. Now, that paranoia was keeping them alive. Two Vorkin soldiers stood guard at a junction ahead. They were relaxed, confident, chatting in their hissing language about which crew members would fetch the best prices. They did not hear Ibarra approach. They did not see her emerge from the shadows. They did not feel anything at all. Ibarra lowered their bodies to the floor and continued moving. She had 12 more soldiers to find before she reached the engine room. She found them. In the communication center, Dr. Priya Nair worked with the focus of someone who had performed surgery under fire. The room was small, filled with equipment she only partially understood, but the principles were universal. All communication systems had vulnerabilities. All networks had weaknesses. She connected her medical tablet to the main console. Human hackers had spent centuries developing viruses for corporate warfare. The Vorkin systems were sophisticated, but they had never encountered code designed by a species that had weaponized information. The virus was simple. It would spread through any connected system, corrupting navigation data, disrupting communication protocols, and creating phantom signals that would confuse sensors. By the time the Vorkins realized what was happening, their fleet would be fighting ghosts. Priya uploaded the virus and watched it begin its work. On her screen, the first Vorkin patrol ship started receiving contradictory navigation commands. She smiled and moved to the next phase. Deshi Alconquo did not move quietly. He did not need to. When you were strong enough to tear through reinforced doors, stealth became optional. The cargo hold where the captured crew members were being held was guarded by 6 soldiers. They heard Deshi coming. They raised their weapons. They prepared themselves for combat. They were not prepared for Deshi. The first soldier fired an energy blast that caught Deshi in the shoulder. The wound smoked and bled. Deshi kept walking. The soldier fired again. Deshi reached him and lifted him off the floor with one hand. That hurt, Deshi said calmly. Then he threw the soldier into the wall hard enough to crack the metal plating. The remaining soldiers attacked together. Shock staves crackled against Deshi's arms, his back, his legs. He grunted with pain, but did not slow. He grabbed soldiers and threw them. He took their weapons and broke them. He absorbed punishment that would have killed most species and answered with force that the Vorkins had never encountered. When it was over, Deshi stood among 6 motionless bodies, breathing heavily. His uniform was torn. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds. He looked like someone who should be dead. He felt fine. He broke the lock on the cargo hold door and found Counselor Tavi inside, along with 15 other crew members. They stared at him with wide eyes. "Come with me," Deshi said. "Stay behind me. Stay quiet." Tavi touched his arm with one of their 4 hands. "You are injured. You need medical attention." Deshi looked at the blood soaking his uniform. He shrugged. "It will stop eventually. Woman's foul. Now move." On the bridge of the Vorkan flagship, Overseer Croth was losing patience. His soldiers aboard the convoy had stopped responding. His communication officers reported strange interference on all channels. One of his patrol ships had nearly collided with another due to faulty navigation data. Something was wrong. "Send reinforcements," he ordered. 20 of my best soldiers. Find those humans and bring them to me alive. I want to know how they're doing this." His communications officer hesitated. "Overseer, we are receiving a transmission from the convoy. It appears to be from one of the humans." Croth's yellow eyes narrowed. "Show me." Dr. Priya Nair's face appeared on the view screen. She looked calm, professional, like a physician preparing to deliver a diagnosis. "Overseer Croth, I wanted to speak with you directly before this situation escalates further." Croth laughed. "Escalates? You are 3 primitives on a medical ship. You have killed some of my soldiers. This is an inconvenience, nothing more. I have hundreds more. Yes, I know. And I know the biological weaknesses of every single one of them." She held up her medical tablet. "Vorkan physiology is impressive. Dense musculature, reinforced skeletal structure, excellent reflexes, but there are vulnerabilities. The nerve cluster beneath your jaw scales, the respiratory membranes behind your throat plates, the soft tissue at your knee joints that your armor does not protect." She tapped her tablet. "I'm a doctor, Overseer. I spent years learning how bodies work so I could heal them, but that knowledge works both ways. I know exactly how to break your soldiers. Quickly, efficiently, permanently." Croth's amusement faded slightly. "Threats do not frighten me. I'm not threatening. I am informing. You have a choice. Release the convoy, leave this sector, never return, or discover what happens when a Deathworld physician stops taking her oath seriously." For a long moment, Croth stared at the screen. Then he began to laugh again. "You think I have built an empire by fearing words? I have conquered species stronger than yours. I have crushed rebellions. I have harvested populations. 3 humans will not change anything." He leaned toward the screen. "I'm sending my elite guard. They will take your ship. They will capture you. And then I will personally teach you what happens to those who defy the Dominion." Priya nodded slowly. "I see. Then I want to thank you." "Thank me?" "Yes. Until this moment, I was bound by my oath. I would have disabled your soldiers without killing them. I would have found a peaceful solution. But you just threatened my crew. You just promised to enslave people I have sworn to protect." Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes shifted. Something cold. "You just freed me from my restraints, Overseer. Now I do not have to hold back." She ended the transmission. Croth stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he shook off the strange feeling in his chest and turned to his officers. "Send the elite guard. Maximum force. I want those humans dead or alive. I no longer care which." His officers hurried to obey. None of them noticed that the flagship's navigation system had just received a new set of commands from the convoy. Commands that would take several minutes to activate. By the time they noticed, it would be far too late. Fire bloomed in the darkness between stars. The first Vorkan patrol ship lost navigation 3 minutes after Priya uploaded her virus. Its engines fired in random directions, sending it spinning toward a second patrol ship. The collision was not fatal, but both vessels lost mobility. On the flagship, alarms screamed. Officers shouted conflicting reports. Overseer Croth watched his perfect trap collapse in a chaos and felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Lieutenant Ibarra stood at the convoy's weapons console. The medical ship was never designed for combat. Its weapons array consisted of mining lasers meant for clearing debris and emergency flares for signaling rescue. Against Vorkan warships, these tools were useless. So Ibarra did not aim at the warships. She aimed at their slave holds. The targeting was precise. Years of special operations training allowed Ibarra to calculate angles that most computers would struggle with. She fired the mining lasers at specific points on the Vorkin vessels, not to damage them, but to trigger emergency protocols. Airlock seals failed. Emergency evacuation systems activated. Slave holds that had been sealed for years suddenly opened, venting their contents into space. But Ibarra was ready for that too. "Tractor beams active," she announced calmly. "Rescue shuttles launching. Dr. Nair, I need you coordinating medical response." Priya was already moving. "On it." "How many?" "First count shows over 200 life signs. Multiple species. Many are in critical condition." "Then let us get to work." The convoy's small shuttle bay erupted into organized chaos. Crew members who had been hiding in terror minutes ago now rushed to launch rescue craft. Counselor Tavi coordinated the empaths aboard, using their abilities to locate conscious survivors among the floating bodies. Captain Morel, finally broken from paralysis, directed traffic with clicking efficiency. The Vorkins watched their cargo escape and could do nothing. Their navigation was corrupted. Their communications were jammed. Their soldiers aboard the convoy had stopped responding entirely. Overseer Croft made a decision. Launch all remaining soldiers. Board the convoy. Kill everyone aboard. His officers hesitated. "Overseer, our systems are compromised. We cannot coordinate a boarding action safely." "Then do it unsafely. I want those humans dead. Now." 20 elite soldiers launched toward the convoy in heavily armed shuttles. They were the best the Dominion had trained. Veterans of 100 conquests. Killers who had never known defeat. They found Deshi waiting at the main airlock. He stood alone in the corridor, blood still dripping from wounds that should have dropped him hours ago. His uniform was torn. His face was bruised. He looked like a man who had already lost. The elite soldiers spread out, confident in their numbers. 20 against 1. Those odds were overwhelming. The first soldier attacked. Deshi caught the shock stave and pulled its owner forward, driving his elbow into the soldier's throat. The soldier collapsed. Deshi took his weapon and threw it into the face of the second attacker. The fight became a storm. Deshi did not move like Ibarra, precise and efficient. He moved like something from human prehistory, from the time when survival meant overwhelming violence and absolute refusal to surrender. When soldiers pinned him down, he bit through their scales. When they electrocuted him, he kept fighting. When they surrounded him, he broke through. Somewhere in the chaos, a soldier managed to drive a blade into Deshi's side. He gasped, stumbled, and grabbed the soldier by the neck. That, he growled through gritted teeth, was rude. He threw the soldier through a wall. The remaining soldiers retreated. They had never encountered anything like this. Their reports to Overseer Croft were fragments of panic. "It will not stop. We heard it, and it keeps coming. It laughed when we electrocuted it. It asked us to send more." Croft's scaled hands gripped his command chair hard enough to crack the material. "It is one human. One. Overseer, you do not understand. It is not fighting to survive. It is fighting because it wants to. It enjoys this." The transmission cut off. Another soldier down. Priya worked in the convoy's expanded medical bay, treating freed slaves while monitoring the battle through internal sensors. Her hands were steady as she repaired damaged tissues and administered healing compounds. Her mind tracked every movement of her teammates. Ibarra had cleared the convoy of Vorkin soldiers. Deshi was handling the reinforcements. The virus was spreading through the Vorkin fleet, corrupting more systems every minute. It was time for the final phase. She activated the convoy's communication array and began broadcasting. Not to Croft, not to the Vorkin fleet, to everyone, every ship in the sector, every communication node within range, every receiver that could catch her signal. She broadcast everything. The Vorkin trap, the slave markets, the species they had harvested, the colonies they had destroyed, the centuries of atrocities committed under the Dominion's banner. And she broadcast what humans did to slavers. The galaxy listened. On the flagship, Croft watched his legacy burn. His communications officers reported that his broadcast codes had been hacked. His secret operations were being exposed to the entire sector. Species he had oppressed were receiving detailed information about his weaknesses. His empire was crumbling in real time. And then the flagship's power died. Every light went dark. Every console went silent. The life support continued, but everything else failed simultaneously. Croth sat in darkness, surrounded by officers who could not help him, waiting for something he could not see. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his command chamber. Lieutenant Ibarra's voice came through the dead speakers, somehow still functional despite the shutdown. Overseer Croth. The convoy sent an SOS. You answer with chains. The footsteps grew closer. Now we are answering you. The door to the command chamber groaned. Metal bent. Lock shattered. Light spilled into the darkness. 3 humans stood in the doorway. Blood-soaked, wounded, exhausted, absolutely victorious. Croth reached for his ceremonial blade, the weapon given to all Dominion commanders for exactly this moment. A defeated commander could choose honorable death over capture. His hand was shaking too badly to draw it. Please, he whispered. The word felt foreign on his tongue. Please, I will give you anything. Wealth, territory. I will release all my slaves. Every single one. Dr. Priya Nair stepped forward. Her voice was calm. That option was available before you touched my crew. Before you planned to sell children into mining camps. Before you laughed at my warning. She looked at Deshi and Ibarra. They moved to flank her. That option no longer exists. Overseer Croth's command chamber smelled of fear. His own fear. The scent filled the dark room as he faced 3 humans who should not have been possible. 12 elite guards surrounded him. His final protection. The deadliest soldiers in the Vorkan Dominion. They had crushed rebellions. They had slaughtered armies. They had never failed. They failed in 4 minutes. Lieutenant Ibarra moved through them like smoke through fingers. She used their own weapons against them, turning shock staves and blades into extensions of her will. Each strike was calculated. Each movement served a purpose. Deshi was less elegant. He absorbed attacks that would have killed lesser beings and answered with force that shattered bones and bent armor. When a guard managed to slash his arm, Deshi used the wounded limb to grab the guard's neck and squeeze until consciousness fled. Dr. Priya Nair did not fight. She watched. She observed. When a guard tried to flank Ibarra, Priya called out a warning. When another guard reached for a hidden weapon, she was there first, her surgical laser finding the nerve cluster that made his arm go limp. When it ended, 12 elite guards lay motionless. Croth sat alone on his command throne, surrounded by the ruins of his power. Ibarra picked up a ceremonial blade from one of the fallen guards. She approached Croth slowly, deliberately. By Vorkan law, she said, a defeated commander may choose honorable death over capture. She offered him the blade. Croth's yellow eyes moved from the blade to her face. He searched for mercy. He found none. I did not want to die. Neither did the thousands you enslaved. Neither did the children you sold to mining camps. Neither did the species you harvested for biological components. Priya stepped forward. You built an empire on suffering, overseer. You used other beings like resources to be consumed. You believe yourself untouchable because no one had ever stopped you. She gestured at the dark, silent flagship. Someone stopped you. Croth's hand trembled as he took the blade. His guards were gone. His fleet was compromised. His secrets were broadcasting across the sector. Everything he had built was burning. He looked at the humans one final time, searching for any hint of the weakness his database had promised. He found only the calm eyes of predators who had already won. The blade rose. Croth made his choice. The convoy General Horizon limped toward the nearest starbase 3 days later. Its hull was scarred. Its crew was traumatized. Its medical bays were filled with over 800 freed slaves from 43 different species. But it was alive. News of what had happened spread faster than any ship could travel. The Vorkan Dominion, undefeated for 3 centuries, had been broken by a medical convoy and 3 humans. The details were almost impossible to believe. A virus that crippled an entire fleet. Soldiers defeated by a man who would not stop fighting. An empire exposed to the galaxy it had preyed upon. Species that had lived in fear of the Dominion began to move. Rebellion sparked on occupied worlds. Trade routes once controlled by slavers fell silent. The power structure that had dominated 3 sectors began to crumble. And through it all, 3 humans continued their work. In the medical bay, Dr. Priya Nair treated her patients with the same steady hands that had disabled Vorkan soldiers. She repaired damaged bodies. She calmed frightened minds. She did what she had always done, what she had sworn to do, what she would continue to do regardless of what the galaxy threw at her. Deshi Okonkwo helped where he could. His wounds were healing slowly, human persistence extending to recovery as much as combat. He lifted patients who could not walk. He carried supplies that others struggled with. He smiled at frightened children and showed them the origami animals he folded from medical wrapping paper. Lieutenant Ibarra stood guard at the medical bay entrance. Her uniform was clean now, her weapons holstered, her expression neutral. She watched the corridor with the patience of someone who had learned that threats could come from anywhere. She would be ready. Counselor Tavi approached her cautiously. The Celian's 4 arms were wrapped around a data pad, their eyes uncertain. "Lieutenant, may I ask you something?" Ibarra nodded. "During the fighting, I tried to sense your emotions." Dr. Nair explained that humans suppress feelings during combat. "But afterward, I still felt nothing from you. No satisfaction. No relief. No guilt." Ibarra considered the question. "What did you feel?" "Quiet. A kind of stillness. Like a lake after a storm." "That sounds about right. But how? You killed so many. You caused so much destruction. How can you be at peace?" Ibarra turned to face the Celian fully. Her voice was soft but certain. "Because they were slavers. Because they hurt innocent people. Because they would have continued hurting innocent people if no one stopped them. I do not enjoy violence, counselor, but I'm very good at it. And I use that skill to protect people who cannot protect themselves." She looked toward the medical bay, where Priya was explaining treatment options to a nervous patient. "Dr. Nair heals. I protect. Deshi carries. We do what we were built to do. The only difference between us and the Vorkans is that we choose to build instead of destroy." Tavi absorbed this slowly. Their empathic senses had been overwhelmed by the events of the past days. They were struggling to understand beings who could be so violent and so gentle simultaneously. "Your species confuses me," they admitted. Ibarra smiled slightly. "We confuse ourselves sometimes. But that is what makes us human. We carry both darkness and light. We choose which one to follow." Inside the medical bay, a young alien child approached Deshi. They were small, fragile, scarred from years in a Vorkan-holding cell. They stared at the blood still visible on Deshi's uniform, the bruises on his face, the bandages wrapped around his wounds. Deshi knelt to meet their eyes. "Hello, little one. Are you hurt?" The child shook their head, but did not speak. Deshi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small origami crane. He had folded it from blue medical wrapping paper, its wings delicate and precise. "Do you know what this is?" The child shook their head again. "It is a bird. From my world. We believe that if you fold 1,000 of them, you get one wish." He held it out. "I have folded many. Would you like this one?" The child hesitated. Then small fingers reached out and took the paper bird. A tiny smile appeared on the scarred face. Tavi watched from the doorway. They reached out with their empathic senses one more time, trying to understand. From Deshi, they felt warmth. Genuine, uncomplicated love for a frightened child. From Priya, they felt purpose. The deep satisfaction of healing wounds and easing pain. From Ibarra, they felt vigilance. The constant awareness of someone who would never let harm reach those under her protection. 3 humans. 3 deathworlders. 3 beings who carried the capacity for terrible violence and chose, every single day, to use their strength for others. The galaxy had sent an SOS expecting mercy. Deathworlders had answered, and they had brought both annihilation and salvation. Because that was what humans were. That was what they had always been. Monsters who chose to be guardians. Predators who chose to be healers. Deathworlders who chose to be kind. The convoy continued its journey home. Behind them, an empire burned. Ahead of them, hundreds of freed beings waited for new lives. and 3 humans returned to their work, ready for whatever came next.